Students are heading back to school all over the country, and the nation's capital is no exception. So there's a lot of action to cover in athletics at the University of the District of Columbia. Today on Firebird Nation Sports Update, we'll visit with Firebirds head men's soccer coach Matt Thompson to hear about the upcoming soccer season. We'll also visit with UDC Associate Director of Athletics for Academics and Senior Woman Administrator Kendra Greene. Ms. Greene is going to tell us all about the Firebirds' successes in the classroom and how she keeps the student athletes on task with their studies. Interesting stuff. So stay with us on the Firebird Nation Sports Update. Hello, this is Firebird Nation Sports Update, your inside look at the University of the District of Columbia athletics. I'm your host, Matt Rienzo. UDC athletics is on the rise, so come fly with the Firebirds. As we ramp up for the fall sports here at UDC, there's a lot of optimism coming out of the nation's capital. In men's soccer action, the Firebirds returned two key starters in 2013 in team MVP Rocky Hernandez and last year's second leading goal scorer Bakary Koulibaly. The Firebirds also returned a very solid core of veterans in Coach Matt Thompson's third season leading the program. 12 of UDC's 18 games in 2013 are at home, which should bode well for the Firebirds, especially in the early goings. The Firebirds will host a Make-A-Wish soccer game on Saturday, September 14th, as UDC takes on Nyack. All the proceeds from the event will go directly to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. On September 21st, the Firebirds will host the third annual Soccer Youth Day. The Youth Day is open to teams and individuals, boys and girls, and all age groups are welcome. The Youth Day includes a free clinic before the game run by the UDC coaches and players. It also includes free admission to the Firebirds game versus NYIT. For more information on the Youth Day or Make-A-Wish, email me at mrienzo@udc.edu. In women's cross country, the Firebirds will look to build off a strong finish to last year's season at the East Coast Conference Championships. UDC's top finisher at the ECCs, Simone Grant, returns for her sophomore season to lead the way. The season begins on September 7th at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore Invitational. Now on to the tennis courts. The women's team returns three-time reigning first-team All-ECC selection Jessica Nunez for her fourth and final season. The Firebirds will look to advance to the ECC tournament for the third consecutive year and claim the program's second ECC championship. The men's tennis team's championship season is in the spring, but they are slated to play one home match against Shepherd in September and also compete at the ITA East Regional Championships in Philadelphia. In other news, the UDC Athletic Department is hosting the first annual Firebird Open Golf Tournament on Monday, October 14th at the National Golf Club at Tantalon in Fort Washington, Maryland. The golf tournament is open to any interested golfers and will be a perfect day to meet the UDC coaches and athletics staff, as well as play some great golf. The tournament will start at 9 a.m. with a shotgun start. For more information, to register a foursome, or to sponsor a hole for the event, visit udcfirebirds.com, click on Alumni Support, then Firebird Open Golf Tournament. We're going to take a short break, but when we return, we'll visit with our first guest, UDC men's soccer head coach Matt Thompson. So stay right there. We're now joined by UDC head men's soccer coach Matt Thompson. Coach Thompson, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Coach, this is your third season here at the University of the District of Columbia, going into your third season. What are your thoughts on the upcoming soccer season?
Yeah, we're excited as usual. Pre-season's around the corner. We start on Monday, and just excited to get started.
You're undefeated, so that's a good thing.
Always a good start.
So as you look at the season, what are some of the key games that you look to, or some of the keys to the season for success?
Yeah, well, I think the very first couple of games are important because you want to set the standard and you want to try and get off to a good start and build confidence. So the first 2 games, 2, 3, 4 games, usually you're trying to work with players, get the team to gel and really position yourself to try and get ready for the conference games.
Now, as you know, I coached for a while, and I always thought the preseason was a great time of year because you finally get with the team again. and there's so much optimism, and you're just looking forward to playing. And I'm sure, coming out of your camp, there's a lot of optimism.
Oh, for sure. Every year, because every team's got a chance, and that's the way you come into preseason with that hope and dream that you can be successful.
Now, speaking of being successful, what are your goals for this season?
Well, I think from a coaching standpoint, we need to improve, try and improve in all areas if we can. The conference is obviously the ultimate, so if we can finish in the top 4 and make the playoffs, that's certainly a goal for us. But the program's still young, we've been here 3 years, but we want to push on and be successful. So to do that, first point is to make the playoffs.
So how many teams make the playoffs in the East Coast Conference?
Top 4. Top 4 right now make the playoffs.
And how far off of that were you last year?
I think we finished second bottom in the end, but with a couple of wins here and there, we would have been in it right up until the last game of the season, and that's what you want. You want to be in it when you're playing the last couple of games of the season. Right.
And so your goal being to make the East Coast Conference tournament, being in that top 4 spot. What are the keys to you being able to do that? What do you have to do technically to get to that point?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to be consistent. As a group, as a team, the team that's most consistent will be the most successful at the end of the season. It's a lot of games in a short amount of time, so every team's going to get injuries and suspensions and different things like that. But we have to try and overcome those adversities and be consistent. I think that's the main thing, is to be consistent.
Game in and game out, just staying with that consistency.
For sure.
Now, your record last year was 6-8-2, which I don't think is indicative of the type of team that you had. You had a lot of really close games. Are you going to be able to improve on that mark this year, you think?
Yeah, I hope so. We've got some good returning players coming in. We've also got about 7 or 8 incoming freshmen that we're excited to have join the squad. So yeah, I think we can improve on it. Our schedule is hard. It's tough. We're playing some very good teams again. But no, we're certainly looking to improve.
Now, talking about your roster, you lost Adriel Garcia, who was a very talented player, your leading scorer. You also lost Tanzu Korkmaz, who is a very good two-way player. But for the most part, you returned the core of your team, plus you've added some new players. You got to feel good about the fact that you're returning a solid core of veterans.
For sure, and I think, me getting into my 3rd year, it's all about building a culture and building that presence around the team, and to have a core of players back is great, and to add to it with some quality, which we think we have done, it should be an interesting season.
So what is the culture that you're trying to build? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a culture of excellence. We really try and have some key words around what we want to build the team around. We let the team decide what those key words are. Some of the words we used last year were passionate, united as a team, motivated. Just a few key words that what represents UDC soccer and what do the players want UDC soccer to represent in themselves.
So those key words change from year to year?
We're trying to keep it the same. We let the players decide. But
you're trying to encourage them to keep it the same.
We try and push it to those areas. But sure, if they come up with a different word that fits the group a little bit better, then we can change it to that for sure. We always change. Same in coaching, same in any position. You're looking to move on and change if you need to.
Right. So one of the things I found interesting watching the last couple of years of Firebird soccer is the game seems to be really physical. Is that a Division II thing, or is that across the board in collegiate soccer?
Yeah, I think it's across the board in any soccer, really. Division II, you may not have the athletes that are at Division I. You usually tend to get a little bit more better athletes at Division I level, Division II maybe. But I think you get better soccer players at Division II level. The players that maybe don't have that. Yeah, more technical. Maybe a few more international players that get across that maybe can't play Division I but look to play Division II. So no, they can be physical. We have to, obviously, in the right way, it's okay.
Right.
But we try and get away from that as much as we can.
Gotcha. So let's talk about your roster again. Who are some of the key returners?
So we have the 2 brothers, Rocky and Elio Hernandez. Both started most games last year. Rocky was a holding centre mid, and he's one of those players that maybe you don't recognise out there, but he puts the work in. He's the workhorse, he's the engine of the team, so he's important to have back. Elio, towards the beginning of the summer, he made the El Salvadorian national under-20 team. So he has talent there, and he just went for a tryout in Germantown, made the squad, had a trip over to El Salvador, and I think he just missed out on the squad that played in the World Cup, the Under-20 World Cup in Turkey.
So he was in like a top 50 grouping? Or
top 30, I think.
Wow, what an accomplishment.
Yeah, it was great. A good experience for him. So I know he's coming back, ready to go, and he wants to break into that top 24 for his national team. So I know he's going to be hungry and has that desire. We have Bakary, He actually started last preseason. He came back from Mali with malaria. So he's actually now fully fit and ready to go.
And
so,
if our viewers recall, he started out playing defense, then moved up to...
Yeah, or the opposite. He started off as a striker and moved back as a central defender because we had injuries and things like that. So yeah, he had a bit of a mixed season last year, but if we can get him settled in his correct position...
What is that correct position?
Well, hopefully it's centre forward, but we'll have to wait and see.
See how the other pieces fit into
Exactly.
play. And then... you mentioned Rocky and Elio and Bakary. What about Jose Garcia and Tunde Akem, a couple other guys?
Yeah, for sure. Jose's going to be a senior this year, so we're looking for him for some leadership. And he is another one that's moved around in a couple of different positions, but he's very adaptable, and I think he'll be great. I think he's going to be very good. Tunde, he's looking very good. He's been working out the whole summer. Been fortunate to see him here and around every now and again in the weight room. So I know he's been working out, and I think he's ready to go.
How important is the weight room when you're talking about soccer players?
I think it's very important, and it's got to be soccer specific. We're fortunate we have strength and conditioning coach Morgan. She puts them through their paces and gives them a program for the summer and indeed for the season. And we'll lift during pre-season as well, at least 2 or 3 times a week. So it's very important.
That's great. Now let's focus on the 2 brothers you mentioned, the Hernandez brothers, Rocky and Elio. You mentioned Elio was on the national team, the El Salvadorian national team, and Rocky was a captain. Those 2 guys seem to be, in addition to some others, really a core of the team. What do those 2 mean to your program?
Yeah, they mean a lot. I mean, and to be fair, Rocky kind of epitomizes what UDC soccer is about, and the team as a group, we're very diverse. We've got players from everywhere, and Rocky and Elio are just in the middle of that.
And I'll say also, Rocky is very active on campus. He's the leader of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, which we have in the athletic department, and really just a great leader and a great representative of the program and of the department as well. And his brother's no different. That's a good duo right there.
Yeah, they're great.
Now let's talk a little bit about your incoming players. I know specifically you can't mention names at this time, but you've got some good fresh young players coming in.
Yeah, we believe we've got some quality coming in. We've got probably maybe 5 new international players coming in from England, Germany, France. So we'll be looking to those guys to really come in and push the group. We've got a couple of local players from Woodbridge, Virginia. They're also going to be pushing to play as well. So, when we try and get a mix of local, international, or whatever we can really find the talent. But there's a lot of talent in DC. It's a matter of finding it.
Gotcha. And I'm sure you and your coaching staff will do a good job of continuing to pursue that in the future. So now let's talk about the East Coast Conference. Very difficult conference, very talented soccer conference. Who are the top teams this year? Kind of who are your big rivals?
Yeah, I think the top team is going to be LIU Post. They were number 1 in the country last year for much of the season. I think they were upset in the round of 16 of the national tournament. We lost to them 4-2 here.
But it was tied 2-2.
Yeah, it was tied, and it was close going into half-time, and then we unfortunately had a red card. And
an own goal, sort of.
Yeah, it was some mixed things happened in that game, but that's part of the game. You have to deal with that. So that'll be a very tough team. And New York Tech are always a very, very good team. Bridgeport. Top to bottom, there is no easy game in the ECC.
One thing I have to bring up is last year you had an 8-7 win over Malloy, which I was at that game, and that was one of the craziest athletic events I've ever been at. 8-7, which is unheard of in soccer. I mean, have you ever been part of a game like that?
Not really, no. No, that was more of a hockey game, I think, than a soccer game. I think we were winning 5-0 going into the second half, so it was a crazy game. And again, anything can happen in soccer, and especially on our field here at UDC.
Yeah, and we were talking before the show that this year it'll probably be 0-0 against them. That's just kind of the way soccer is. Yeah. So we just have a little bit of time left. Let's talk about community service and some of the things that your team does. I know you took advantage of some opportunities to work with some kids with the exercise group. Talk a little bit about your team's involvement with community service and the importance of that.
And actually I should give credit to our assistant coach, Danny Waston. He's the one that leads up the community service for our team. But yeah, we took a group out. And we worked with a group of kids, disadvantaged kids with all kinds of different disabilities, and really put it on some sports clinics and helped out. I think we went 2 or 3 different weekends, and the whole team went. Great experience for them, obviously to get involved in the community, but to really connect with the local kids and really try and help out as much as we can.
Well, there's a couple key dates coming up that we mentioned in the preview of the show. The Youth Day is on September 21st. Make-A-Wish Day to raise money for that foundation is on the 14th of September, and then your senior day on the 12th of October. So we encourage the viewers to come out and support the team, and that's all the time we have, but certainly I know you have the program moving in the right direction, and wish you the best of luck this year on the soccer field, and we look forward to following the team's progress and breaking through to that top 4 spot.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. We're going to take a short break. When we return, we'll visit with Associate Director of Athletics, Kendra Greene. We're now joined by UDC Associate Director of Athletics for Academics and Senior Woman Administrator, Kendra Greene. Kendra, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is your first time on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, how have you been here 2 years? We haven't had you on the show yet.
Guess just lucky.
Now, you've worked here for 2 years in the athletic department. Let's talk a little bit about that. How did you end up working in athletics here at UDC?
Well, actually, I've been at the university for 4 years. I come to UDC from the University of Maryland, where I worked previously for 3 years in the Academic Support and Career Development Unit, where I worked primarily with football, but then I worked with the other 26 sports at the University of Maryland in the capacity of an advisor. I also worked with the Champs Life Skills program, coordinating community service and those types of things. So when I left Maryland, I wanted to work with a broader student base. So I came to UDC and actually started working under the Provost's office in the Academic Support Center.
How many years were you working in that role?
2. So I started off as one of the academic advisors, and then I was promoted to the lead advisor, where I oversaw the academics for most of the student athletes, making course suggestions, degree progression, those types of things, working with the athletic department very closely. But then I also had many other jobs around the university. I served as the USGA co-advisor for a year. I helped out with orientation, strategic planning, a Noel Levitz initiative. So I did 2 years across campus, as we say, and then Ms. Thomas reached out to me when this position came available, and I transitioned back into athletics and worked out really well.
And obviously, you have an interesting background, and the time that you spent here at the university in academics, not in athletics, I think really has benefited you working in your role in athletics, because you know the ins and outs of the university and the right things to do with the student athletes. So,
yes, yep. I got to forge a lot of great relationships across campus, learn the admissions process, financial aid process, as well as in building great relationships with the deans and the chairs across campuses. So it makes my job easier working with the student athletes, of knowing who to call, and then working very closely with the Academic Advising Center, my old office,
right,
with all the student athletes now.
That's great. Now, you mentioned you worked at Maryland, which is very cool, formerly ACC school and big-time athletic department. You also worked at Oklahoma and Michigan State. What did you do at those places?
Yes, I actually started off my career in intercollegiate athletics as a college student. I was a peer mentor and a peer tutor in their academic support for student athletes program at the Clarabelle Smith Center. It's called SAS, Student Athlete Support Services. So I spent a year and a half there working with a variety of sports as a peer tutor in subject areas, as well as then working on time management skills, working with other graduate students, even though I was a senior in college, developing a program to really enhance students' academic needs and the skills that they would need to be able to be successful in college. So then when I knew that this was a field I wanted to work in, I actually applied to a variety of grad schools, and I ended up at the University of Oklahoma. I accepted a graduate assistantship position in ASL, Athletic Student Life Office. But then they also move you around in all the different areas at the University of Oklahoma. So I did development, a little bit of compliance, event management, game day relations, everything.
Yeah.
So, and what happened was when I graduated, they actually offered me a full-time position at the university's basketball facility, the Lloyd Noble Center. So I was the special events coordinator there. So I worked underneath the general manager, did ESPN game day operations, all the concerts, commencements, all those types of events.
So you've got a lot of experience in athletics and academics, and at some very cool places. That's great. Now, you're the Associate Director of Athletics for Academics. What does that mean?
My day-to-day means that I'm in charge of making sure that student athletes get the academic support they need, that they're selecting the right courses to be able to graduate, hopefully in the 4 years of their eligibility from the University District of Columbia, and then also helping them navigate the academic system, making sure that if they're transferring in, that all the credits that we're transferring in, their degree applicable. If they're not working with the chairs, I'm kind of a resource to students of who they need to go see, much like the advisors in the Academic Advising Center. If a student comes in with questions, I get them in touch with the people they need across campus. I also run our academic support program specifically for student athletes. It's very important to our athletic director, Patricia Thomas, as well as our whole department, that these student athletes have a top-notch experience, graduate from this institution, and go on and be able to
graduate in 4 years.
Yes,
too,
graduate
right?
in 4 years during their eligibility time here, and then go out into the community and have a great experience and get a job. So part of my job is to help them start communication skills, working with someone like yourself as well as Eric Zadalis, of teaching them good communication, making them good leaders.
Eric Zadalis, Sports Information Director.
Correct, yep, and making sure that our student athletes, and specifically our SAC, which I know we want to talk about, really empowers these students to understand this is a great experience being a student athlete, then where can I springboard from there? So the academic support program is a freshman and all student athletes coming into the institution. You're going to have study hall, and that's one thing that they don't enjoy, but it helps them maybe.
That's important, though.
It is very important. It helps them understand the time management aspect of college. Many of these students were playing multiple sports in high school and or at another institution before transferring to us, and they're not used to downtime, and downtime sometimes means, oh, I'll go see a movie and I'll go do this, and they're forgetting to do their homework because they have a little bit extra time when they're out of season.
Time management is key.
Yes, especially when they're out of season, and working with the coaches and making sure to build a good schedule. These students understand academics is first, then athletics, and making sure that they're progressing on.
Well, that's a lot to do for one person, and it seems like you're a one-stop shop for all things for the student athletes with academics. So now let's switch over to the student athletes now. There are roughly 100 student athletes, give or take, in the UDC athletic department. Last spring, there was a graduation ceremony where 25 of the student athletes graduated. That's a quarter of the student athlete population. That must have been a proud moment. What was that like?
It was a very proud moment, especially for me being here now, starting my 5th year. A lot of these students that were graduating last spring, I knew when I was in the Academic Advising Center as brand new freshmen. So it was very exciting to see them actually be able to, through their whole career, and then graduate from the institution. On top of being able to see students that had transferred in and had a great experience, being able to spend time. We actually had our first ever student athlete graduate reception where we invited their families the day before graduation to come to the sports complex and just kind of celebrate the day. We got to take some great pictures, create some memories for the whole Firebird community in the athletic department, because when you can take a moment to realize this is what you came here for. Some of them won championships, some of them represented our department very well on the national level in NCAA tournaments, and to then take that moment on top of that to say, look, you've graduated from the institution and we celebrate you. It was an awesome weekend. Yeah,
that's great, and obviously is a tribute to you and your work, and Ms. Thomas as well, the Director of Athletics. Now let's talk a little bit more about the academics. There were 30 student athletes who made Dean's List last year, 10 of them who got perfect 4.0 GPAs. That's really impressive. That's great success in the classroom. That probably goes unnoticed in the local media and in the community as well. How have you been able, and how have the student athletes as a group been able to accomplish those milestones?
A lot through their diligence and hard work. Also, the coaches really vesting the time with these students and making sure that they're making academics the priority. We've had some great milestones last year specifically for the teams on, well, just amongst our Dean's List, which we've talked about, but then also at our ECC level and our national level.
With awards.
And those types of things.
Yeah.
We actually had 2 teams were selected this year for the 2012-2013 ECC Team Excellence Awards, our men's and women's tennis team, which means they were the highest cumulative GPA of any men's and women's tennis teams in our conference. Then we also put 28 student athletes on the ECC honor roll. That's huge. So
and those are advantages of being part of a conference.
Correct.
You get that recognition, which
Correct.
is something that these student athletes can put on their resume, and it's good for everybody.
Yes, and it's a great opportunity for the students that, again, you mentioned that the UDC community may not notice, but these students are being able to see their accomplishments being recognized on a national level, competing for, if they go to represent their team or themselves in the national NCAA regional competitions, then they qualify to be a possibility All-American.
And certainly we're able to publicize those
Correct.
successes as well, internally and externally as well.
Yes.
So that's great. Now, a couple other things. Graduation rates are much improved in the athletic department from where they were like 5 or 10 years ago.
Yes.
And then also most of the student athletes graduating in 4 years.
Yes.
how have you been able to accomplish that?
Like I said, just diligence, hard work, educating the students too. We've done a really good job of changing the culture, led by Patricia Thomas, and I just kind of take that and run with it. Students need to not just register as a full-time student. We need to talk about graduation from day one. We need these students to have their eye on the prize.
That's the goal
and
when they
getting
come
it
in.
through, correct, and making sure that we're not just taking 12 credits a semester and then, oh, I might take summer school. These students are taking a minimum of 5 courses or 15 credits a semester. That's what we really encourage them to do. So then they're taking 15 in a fall, 15 in a spring. That's 30 for a year. 30 times 4 years, 120, which is normal degree amount for a bachelor's degree at the University District of Columbia. And some of our students really take that challenge and run with it. We actually have a men's student athlete right now, Jose Garcia, that's a triple major, that's going to graduate on time because he came in here knowing, I want to work in the communications TV production area in Spanish. He's had 2 great internships. He's worked for a local newspaper. He's worked for Telemundo. He will walk this spring with a degree in Spanish, TV production, and journalism.
Wow, that's a great anecdote about
Yes.
Some of the success that the athletic department.
And it's not just one, they're multiple. I mean, we've had graduates this year, this past spring, as well as they finished in December and then in spring. Jasmine Rich was a women's basketball player and women's outdoor track athlete. She works at Coppin State now as a NCAA fellow, is the program that was set up that she's actually studying to try to become somebody like me and work in academic support. Brandon Herbert was a men's basketball player. He has his real estate license now in the state of Maryland. He reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and saying, hey, if you want to buy a house, but those are those types of great stories. Taya Bila, I know she's been on this show. She got herself after an internship, got a full-time job in the District of Columbia. Ida Guy, another women's basketball player and tennis, works for the District of Columbia in human resources.
Well,
so
there's
we're very
so many
proud.
success stories and so many other things I want to talk to you about, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, among others. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I got to have you back on the show again sometime soon. It seems like the athletic department, and especially with regards to academics, is in great hands and moving in the right direction. So we commend you for your work and keep up the great work.
I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the day to talk.
That's all the time we have today. I'd like to thank our guests, Firebirds head men's soccer coach Matt Thompson and Associate Director of Athletics Kendra Greene. Please don't forget to follow Firebird Athletics on the web at udcfirebirds.com, on Twitter at UDCFirebirdFans, and on Facebook at UDC Athletics. Thanks for watching the Firebird Nation Sports Update. I'm your host, Matt Rienzo. The Firebird is rising in the nation's capital, and we're glad you're along for the ride.